Hello and welcome to Cast Iron Friday Night Interviews. Every week we'll be speaking to a creative in Brighton or beyond, talking about the work they're doing, the work that they haven't been able to do in the current situation, and what they're hoping for the future. And tonight's guest is Chelsea Newton Mountney. Hello, Chelsea.
Hey Andrew, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Let's ask that question properly. How are you doing? Has it been a tough couple of weeks, or not normal couple of weeks?
No, I mean, I think like everyone, there's times when you're like, oh my God, this is like so hopeless, and like the looming thing of what's going on globally
Yeah.
is obviously like going to get to you. And so I think everyone I speak to, it's very up and down. Like there's moments you can forget for like an hour, and then times when you really can't.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think the same. We were speaking about this at the last one, and for me, because you've been up to the Edinburgh Fringe, haven't you? And it's for me, it feels very much like that sort of calendar of each day feeling like it's 45 hours long. At the same time as it
Yeah,
being only 6 minutes long, you sort of go, "Oh, I've got all this time now," and then
yeah.
you are. I mean, I personally tended to be quite busy, and I'm imagining you're keeping quite busy yourself.
Mm.
What?
Yeah, I think keeping busy is a real help for me at least.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's different for everyone. I mean, it's weird being in Brighton during May and there's no Fringe and festival,
yeah.
and that I think when May started, I really felt that because that's like one of the kind of most fun and inspiring times of year to be in Brighton. And I mean, as well, if you're in the Fringe, like it's a really tiring time of year,
Yeah.
but fun as well. So that's been like felt like a bit of a loss, I think.
And it only occurred to me this week that I think about now will be the time of the Great Escape and all those sort of things not happening because the advertising for that obviously isn't happening. What were
Mm.
you going to be doing for the Brighton Fringe this year?
So I had a project called Threads, which was a one woman kind of celebration of getting dressed and looking at how different outside sources can make us feel really rubbish about the way we look or make us feel prohibited in what we wear. And this was a real kind of um, two fingers up to how we should look and more a encouragement of like, let's wear and feel good, wear stuff that makes us feel good.
What makes you feel good generally, and does it change?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, especially with clothing, like it's, I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens to style and fashion going forward when this is over. But like for me, I love all clothes, but like casual clothes and being comfortable is really important. And especially if you're working at home all the time, like for me, I've really enjoyed being able to wear like lots of soft fabrics and loose clothing and feeling really comfortable has been a treat. Having said that, I am looking forward to having an occasion to dress up and wear something different now.
Have you been to like online parties, online Zoom parties and stuff? Do you dress up for?
A little bit, but then I'm not really, still not bothered.
Yeah.
I think like there's lots of different ways to like feel good in what you're wearing, and if that day it is just wearing a hoodie and some leggings, then that's cool for you. Like if that's what's making you feel good that day. So, and as well, I think you can still be stylish and interesting and unusual even in really casual clothing.
I don't know if this came up in Threads, but is what you wear a conversation? Is it as conscious as I feel this way today? I want to present this today.
I think it can be, and I also think it can be the total opposite. Like, um, I spoke to lots of different people as kind of partly research, but also for a podcast that's related to the project. And one of my friends said that sometimes they dress the total opposite of how they were feeling to try and get themselves to feel better. And I think that's a really nice bit of advice as well, that you can feel really like pants and low, but actually dressing like you feel good or dressing like in a kind of power outfit, whatever that is for you, can be really helpful to feeling brighter.
Do you have a favourite item of clothing that makes you feel powerful? Or at least do you have a favourite
I think it changes
day? I was
all
going
the
to say,
time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just did a load of tie dyeing a couple of weeks ago, and literally it was like one of the best things I've done throughout lockdown. And I tie-dyed a tracksuit, which is the second time I've done it because I love tie-dye and I love tracksuits now. So tie-dyeing this tracksuit, I wore it last Sunday, and it's quite an outfit. Yeah.
Is it a conversation starter?
Yes, I mean obviously like you're not really seeing anyone at the
No.
moment, but it definitely got some looks down the park.
Well, I think everyone's giving people looks down the park, so
Yeah.
you might as well have it as a tie-dye tracksuit. So you with Threads and the show and the podcast. This is Pop Heart Productions.
Yeah.
Which how did that company come about?
So my partner and I started the company 5 years ago now, I think, out of a want to create original work that we felt was relevant to our times and our generation, using either kind of newly written pieces or also a lot of devising as well.
And presumably, when you talk about sort of it being relevant to your generation, what is lacking in that generally? What do you feel that certain media, certain stories aren't relevant to you, and what's the disconnect?
I think we'd been around a lot of stuff that was and been in things as well were that we felt, although it's a really important story or really important part of theatre culture or heritage, and that we should definitely know about it, that maybe it wasn't talking about stuff that we were going through or facing at that time. And we're lucky enough that lots of our friends are also involved in theatre things. So we were working with different friends on different projects that were trying to look at stuff that was one of our big projects was about how social media had changed the way we were communicating, and that was devised just as Tinder and all those platforms were starting to get really popular. And obviously at that time there was loads of other work like that as well, but it kind of took for us to make that work to see that there was other stuff out there like it as well, which was actually really useful to being like, oh no, there is a lot of work out here that we want to see that is relevant.
Yeah, because I guess there's a sense of if a piece of work has existed for a long while, then that becomes the norm. And if you're writing in the era of Tinder and swiping left and whatever, certainly with media, it seems like it always feels a bit fleeting. And I remember people not getting onto Facebook for 4 years, or not even getting a mobile phone for 5 years, because it took a while to realise, oh, that's here to stay. And so it's quite easy
Yeah.
to be telling stories about these things in the birth of those moments and going, oh, actually, no, this is relevant to us now.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And at the time, it felt like it really changed, the way that our friends and I were communicate with people, dating, how our view of ourselves and the world was affected by the huge range of different media platforms that are out there. I mean, obviously, it's even more now. So at the time, it felt like it was a really interesting subject to explore, and at that point, relatively unexplored through theatre.
You spoke about Threads as being, and we both did, about it being that what would have happened. Are you hoping that it will still exist in the new times?
In the new times, yeah. Hopefully, I think so. I think what's been interesting, we touched upon how style will perhaps change because obviously culturally this has been a big shock to everyone. Shock's not the right word, but a big change for everyone. So I think the show has always looked at how clothes make you feel and how you feel about yourself, and that's always relevant. But I think the interesting thing to maybe add to the piece, not that I want to make it about this time, but how we might dress if we're not seen. So obviously at the moment we're not seen, we're at home. How that can affect what you're putting on and how you're feeling about it.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, obviously, it's a show that's very much from you and it's unique to you. Do you think that it will be a hugely different show if it was somebody of a different gender with the same remit of talking about clothes and the clothes that make us?
Possibly. Well, yeah, definitely. I think. I mean, I've tried to keep different aspects like in mind, so it's not just totally my voice and opinion. But yeah, of course, if it was written by a different person, it would have a different point
Of
of
course,
view.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What's been this is it. What has been keeping you sane? We spoke a little bit before we did the recording about things that have been making you happy. What things are keeping you at peace at the moment?
Plants. I've never been particularly green fingered, but I'm like really trying to embrace that. Like, and it's brought me so much pleasure just like being able to buy like a £2.50 geranium from a supermarket,
Yeah,
and be able to look out the window and see flowers. Like that's just been a really simple and cheap pleasure.
yeah.
That and just like crafting. Now I've had the extra time, and obviously there's lots of time in the evenings as well where you're just like a bit sick of watching TV. So for me, like loads of different crafts and trying things I wouldn't normally do, like lots of crochet and even just stuff like doodling and messing around with felt tip pens and messing around with watercolor paint and just whatever I can find in the house. I'm like, what can I make this into?
So these are the sorts of things that we've been speaking about for the past 5 years, about mindfulness, about you being tactile with our hands and using things and creating things. What I was going to ask about the podcast itself, because we haven't we've briefly mentioned that. So that's an ongoing thing in any case.
Yeah.
And it's conversations with others about the clothes that they wear. Yeah.
Yeah, it interviews just normal people about their style and how clothes make them feel, and how we can get more joy out of the way we look and what we wear.
Yeah.
So there's been, I think four or five's about to
I
come
think
out.
so.
I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah. Yeah.
remember.
A
Which is
number.
hosted by, huh?
A number of
A number.
episodes.
There's
Yeah.
been a few.
Yeah.
But what's been interesting is doing FaceTime interviews like for it, and how our conversations are slightly different now. We're all at home,
Yeah.
and how that has affected it. But yeah, it's ongoing. It's part of the project. So it's well, you guys host it on your Cast Iron
Yes.
SoundCloud
Yes.
platform, don't you?
We do. So yes, that's a shout out on the Cast Iron website and on the Twitter feed. You can find the episodes of Threads that we're currently hosting. That's the best advert I could do at the moment. Yeah. So, but yes, it's been a joy to sort of to host that and have those listen to those conversations going on. Do you have any idea? Maybe you don't, because I'm not sure that I do. Of what sort of work you're going to be creating in the Brave New World?
No,
No.
I don't. I think it's so unsettling. And this Threads project was probably the most like optimistic piece of work I'd ever made. A lot of the other things we looked at were a little bit darker.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see whether I go back to looking at more darker concepts or as a tonic to these unsettling times, or maybe carry on with a more celebratory vibe. I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know. I remember somebody, Catelyn Moran, in fact, talking about people's misconception of Charlie Brooker, in that everyone thinks that he's this miserable, moaning sort of person. And she went, no, he's an angry romantic. He's absolutely joyful, but he's just there's a thread of, we can be better. We don't have to do this. And I guess there might be a marriage of both, of going, well, yes, let's be cynical, let's acknowledge the horribleness, but that doesn't mean that we need to totally dismiss the idea that there might be light at the end of the tunnel that isn't about to come and crash us down. But yeah, I mean, I've always been so impressed by Pop Art and yourselves about the work that you do and the sort of I think the curiosity. I think that's a really valuable sort of thing of going, what's next? What's the next question? What's the next answer? And I think that
question, like for us, whenever we look at any kind of medium of creativity, like we always feel personally that the best art for us raises questions, and that's what we want to always try and get across in our work too.
Is it? I mean, in terms of the stories that you tell and the medium that you use and the practicalities. I guess I'm talking more now about the practicalities, because there's lots of conversations going on at the moment about theatre as a very general term being dead, or at least coughing up blood, because of, even though it still has more spectators, more people going to it than a football match year to year, that this is a challenging time. And obviously when people are giving out money and whatever, it might be that theatre isn't considered a priority and whatever. For you guys, what helps you tell, in a practical term, what helps you tell the next stories after this time? Or are you quite worried about that in terms of literally the medium or the venue to tell the stories? Or is it something that's you're not prepared to think about yet?
I think, like, I mean, I've briefly read some of the things that are going on overall in the theatre industry in
Yeah.
terms of like the fear of really big venues having to close, which is really surprising. Things that are like British cultural institutions that could close, which is really mad. For us personally, we've always operated on like a really DIY kind of basis. So we've performed in kind of odder venues anyway, that aren't ideal, but add something to the work in a more like gritty, real way,
Yeah.
I guess. So although it's like a real luxury to be able to go into a really nice like black box studio theatre space and perform, we're also used to the complete opposite of that. So trying to just, I mean, maybe that will change, you know, a lot of small theatre companies' work because they will have to adapt to more like non-traditional theatre venues. Who knows?
But it's interesting, isn't it? Yes, I think that your aesthetic can be enabled by being quite punk and being venues that are and spaces that aren't traditional. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the Dolly Parton line, isn't it? It takes a lot of money to look this cheap, and just
Yeah.
because you're in an environment that apparently looks like you just rocked up and created the work, that doesn't mean there's not a lot of care and commitment and passion and, frankly, money needed to even get to that point, even if you're just in a car park. So
Yeah, totally, totally. And I mean, personally, we really like that aesthetic of like, you know, this, even though the performers, it's very much real, the story they're telling, you know, we want you to be with the story, that it is theatre and it's not a real moment you're watching. And we like that kind of like nod to, well, you know, this isn't real. This is in a kind of shitty pub. Sorry, excuse my French. In a rubbish, like dingy pub room. And sorry, I swore, Andrew. You're laughing at me now.
but you
I
see.
did so well.
Luckily, what I'm doing is laughing off screen because it was purely on you. So I managed to remove myself. But here's what we're talking about. Here's what we're talking about. I guess because, and even in terms of swearing, in terms of dialogue and whatever, there's care and attention, isn't there? And you talking about the city pub.
Well, not just then,
Well,
but
but do you know what? Because I think that because I work with lots of people of varying ages, and we can have conversations. There's a real conversation to be had with like younger people, telling them why they can't swear, being aware that you might swear yourself in your so-called real life. But I think that when swearing, I mean, Billy Connolly has lots of great defences about swearing and the poetry and the beauty of that. I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this.
no,
It's
but
not a
I mean, you're
segue that I
right. Like,
intended to go
obviously,
on. But I guess what I meant was that it's in the punk sort of thing that the words can be they're part of they're honest. I guess is what I'm going for. You're not meaning to offend or be sort of controversial. It's real
no.
authenticity.
I mean, no. It's not about those things. They have a real quick brutality to them, which I think can be really useful in a title or a piece of text.
Well, actually, yes. Let's talk about that because you have had a title that is deliberately brutal and attention. Yeah, I think attention seeking is not a negative term. And that was the show from 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years.
3, I think now.
We're all getting old.
How dare you?
Well, I am. So, yeah. So, and that was a really sort of interesting, fascinating show to watch and to see to develop. I think I'll let you name what the show is. I don't feel like I.
Well, what, properly name it?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so it was called Am I
Yeah.
Fuckable? And it was a show about that I mentioned before. Sorry, excuse me. About how technology had affected the way we were communicating and dating
Yeah.
and the way we were feeling about ourselves because of that. And I never saw the title as attention seeking, though I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of other people did. But when I came up with it, I just thought it was like, that's what I'd say about myself. That's what I'd think about myself. Like, am I attractive? Am I okay? Like, so if that for me was just like the most quick way to say that without something as soft as, am I attractive?
Well,
You
yeah. It's
know,
like.
which is so
I mean, it's
uninteresting.
been a good while since I've seen EastEnders, but the thing that always clanged in my ear was the quite understandable thing because it's a 7:30 show is that none of the characters in an argument swore, and I think but they would, and they swear quite magnificently. So I think you're right. I think I can see both. I think both sides of that. I think for an audience member or a potential audience member, it is attention grabbing. But I think
Mm,
your point is absolutely correct. Why would you use a slightly more elegant, elevated bit of language when you're actually this
mm,
is the conversation you'd have with your friends? Um,
mm.
what are you, Chelsea? What are you looking forward to? And not necessarily, what we've now called the new times, but because we've spoken very briefly about, emotional well-being and whatever. And in any unformed thought that I have, I think that a thing that can keep us well is a thing to look forward to, whether it be that next episode of a program you're watching or a meal that you're looking forward to. What are you looking forward to in the next couple of days or weeks?
I've really, really been enjoying watching Grace and Perry's Art Club on
Yeah,
Channel 4. Found it really fun and inspiring, and me and my partner are doing really bad attempts of trying to do all the themes each week. So that's been really great. Um, yeah, just that and crafts really. I think that's been one of the biggest things that's got me through that, and just reading. Even, we're at a point now where I'm just rereading books, and that's really nice.
yeah.
Probably those really simple things, quite dull, but simple.
But also, I think, guess for the Grace and Perry, for the craft, for the reading, they're all things that don't necessarily end. They are continuous.
Mm,
So you can put down the crafts in the middle of the thing. When you haven't quite finished tie dyeing your tracksuit, and you can go back to it and sort of like find out how would I. This is what we're going to end on. If I wanted to tie dye my tracksuit, and I should point out, I qualify as an idiot. Um, how am I going to tie dye a t-shirt or a tracksuit?
Well, you want something that's like white or grey or really pale coloured,
Yeah.
and you could get some Dylon dye. I'm sure there's other brands available, but then you basically tie string or elastic bands. You can
See,
look up
here's
how
the
to do
thing.
tie dye,
This is
and
how
it
much of
will
an
tell you
idiot
how
I
to do lots
am.
of different shapes.
This is how
Huh?
much of an idiot I am. So tie dyeing is literally tying bits. And see, this is how much of an idiot I am. Okay, so I'm going to tie bits of the material into sections.
Yeah, so if you wanted just a circle shape on the t-shirt, you'd tie string round a part of the t-shirt and then you'd dye it, and then that bit would remain white or grey and the rest would be dyed. Um, but you can do like spirals and hearts and all sorts. So look up instructions. It's much simpler than I'm making it sound when I'm
Okay,
badly explaining
and it takes
it.
it takes how long?
Depends on the dye that you're
Yeah.
using. So some of them you soak in water with the dye. Some of them you like pour on and then leave it overnight. Some of them you can even put in the washing machine. So it depends what dye you use.
Oh, I think I've done tie dyeing accidentally in a washing machine a few.
Yeah, we've all done
But,
that.
but yeah, okay. So thank you so much, Chelsea. It's been lovely to catch up and find out what's going on and what's not going on. And we hope to see you very soon, virtually or possibly even IRL. See, I'm down with the kids in real life. It's been a genuine pleasure to speak to you, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yay! Thank you.
Take care. Be well. Bye bye. So
Bye.
See, there I am. I'm not educating you well enough about when I've turned the screen off on you and I'm going bye bye, and then I don't wait for your bye bye back. And it's not fair to you. It's not fair to our viewers. It's not fair to anybody. So here's the thing. I'm going to say goodbye to you once. This is screwed up the edit. There's going to be no editing on this.
That was me. I'm sorry. I said goodbye too soon.
No, you didn't. I just said bye and then dismissed you. I'm going to leave this all in because clearly I'm an amateur. But yes, thank you so much, Chelsea. And as I say, we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Bye.
There we go. We've got it. See, that's me being an amateur next to the very glorious and professional Chelsea Newton Mountney. Thank you so much for checking in with us, and we will see you again soon with another brilliant new guest. Take care, be well,